Okay, welcome everybody. We're very, very excited about today's event, which is with two of our amazing experts who really know everything from A to Z and Z to A about divorce and custody and all of this stuff involved. And so they're each going to be teaching us a lot today. So I'm going to have turn the tables over to them, have them introduce themselves, and get started. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat and I will let them know if there's anything. And they're going to talk for about a half an hour and then we will stop the recording. And then if anybody wants to come off video and ask questions about anything they discussed, that will not be recorded. So it is totally safe to ask those questions. And Maria and Jolie, I'm assuming you're going to leave info about how to connect with you guys and all of that stuff, right? Okay.
We will, yes.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to hide and listen like everybody else because I need this just as much as everybody else does. Okay, ladies, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We're really excited and honored to get to spend this time with you. And we intend for this to be of high value for you. So without further ado, let's begin. So likely if you are here, you're either about to navigate separation or divorce, or maybe you're in the process, you're on the journey, or perhaps you are co-parenting with somebody post-divorce and you're noticing that there are still challenges that come up. So that is exactly what we're here to talk about. So you're in the right place. And specifically, my portion of the presentation is going to focus on the difference between orders and outcomes because they are not the same thing. So again, thank you all for being here. And there we go. Before I delve in, I just want to take a moment to introduce myself so you know who is speaking with you. My name is Maria Natapov. I am a BH2O certified co-parenting coach and step-parenting coach and co-parenting specialist. And I specialize in supporting parents who are navigating these very types of transitions, which is separation, divorce, and co-parenting challenges post-divorce. I have lived this from every single seat at the table. I am a child of an extremely contentious divorce that lasted way too long. I am a domestic abuse survivor from my first marriage, both emotionally and physically. And then I became a stepmom to my really wonderful stepdaughter, who 5 years into my journey revealed that she was being abused and neglected by her bio mom and stepdad. So she came to live with us full time. That was 7 years ago. And 2 years ago, she wanted me to adopt her. So I did. So again, I've seen this. Firsthand. I've experienced what this does, especially to kids who are very frequently and very unintentionally collateral damage in these situations. And I have seen it, personally as a parent to a child who was very much caught in all kinds of turmoil and conflict and chaos. And I've also seen this from the professional lens through the families that I've supported. And what I can tell you is this, it is not the challenge that comes up frequently is not due to any parent's lack of effort. It is frequently a lack of structure that parents can actually live into day to day in real time that they can actually utilize to work for their family. So by a quick show of hands in the chat, actually not show of hands, if you could put a 1 in the chat, I'm going to pose this question to you. How many of you have thought to yourself, well, once we have the agreement in place, then things will actually calm down? Anyone's? Yeah, thank you. We have a 1. Any others?
Heard this before, Maria. Yeah.
Comment. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yes, this is very frequently where families start. And thank you for participating. I appreciate those rolling in. It's a very, very common assumption. And unfortunately, what I see that parents have to learn frequently the hard way is that orders create structure, but they do not create peace. They do not help you to communicate and teach you how to communicate in the day-to-day. They do not teach you how to handle tension, and they do not really, anticipate or safeguard what your child experiences in the day-to-day. So here are, let's see, here, here are three common traps that I frequently see that parents tend to fall into through the course of this. Waiting for the court to fix it. As I mentioned, orders create structure. They can create agreements, but they do not actually protect or create the peace day to day in your home and for your child and for you as you navigate this process. The other common one is reacting instead of responding. So frequently, we have such strong emotions about this because the stakes are so high, which is completely understandable. But when we're responding from emotions or a knee-jerk response to whatever's happening, frequently we're in fight or flight mode. And essentially, it's the survival mechanism that's being activated. And essentially, all this is to say our emotions, though valid, are fleeting. And they are an indication to what's actually important that lies underneath. And those are the very insights that frequently we can't necessarily identify in the moment. And that is sort of the trap of reacting from an emotional place rather than having the skills to know what to do in that moment, how to take that break, and how to actually get in touch with what matters most, which is what's underneath, which will drastically impact your long-term outcomes, right? So being intentional. And number three is waiting for the other parent to change. So many folks think that that is a possibility and think that that will happen. And of course, we know we never have a magic wand, so we can't control what the other person is doing. It's best to assume they're just going to be who they have been already, who they've shown themselves to be, how they're currently interacting, and that will not change. And of course, the judge doesn't have that magic wand either. Neither does your lawyer. I'm sure Jolee can speak a little more to that. And neither do frequently any of the other professional and support staff that are working with you through this process. So again, the greatest power that you can really step into for yourself is rather than waiting for that other person or circumstances to change, instead change how, gain some skills, create a structure, and change how you're interacting within the system, responding, making decisions that will impact and truly create that peace that you are longing for yourself and for your kids. So what kids need most, and the number one most important thing, and research is extremely clear about this, it is not the event of separating or divorcing that negatively impacts children. What makes the biggest difference for how well they can weather after such an event is the degree of parental conflict that they're exposed to, and very specifically the duration, the severity, and the frequency. So the less conflict, the more well-adjusted they become, the more in every aspect and facet of life, and the more conflict, the less well-adjusted they become emotionally, academically, interpersonally, intrapersonally. And these are things that tend to play out. These themes tend to play out for the remainder of their lives. It could even lead to negative health outcomes down the line as well. So what kids really want and need most of all is just to feel safe in their home with each of their parents, to stay out of the middle. Frequently, kids take it upon themselves to feel that they have to choose sides or that they have to protect the emotional well-being of either parent or both very often. And all of that just adds to the emotional burden that they end up carrying, and they're just quite frankly not equipped. They're not developmentally ready. And it takes a huge toll on them, which is what frequently leads to that negative fallout, as I had mentioned a moment ago. So they need to feel free to love both parents. Now, even in drastic circumstances where maybe there has been some concerning behavior, either emotionally or physically or both, kids are half of each parent. And just because a certain dynamic exists between the parents doesn't mean that they're ready to completely let go of that relationship. So again, just having access is frequently what tends to be best for them long term. So what actually works then? We've talked about what doesn't work. What is it that actually makes the difference to create a positive outcome and not just to create an order as we consider this process. It is structure, right? Because structure gives predictability, and something to lean on and fall back on, especially in those very messy moments. But really, the biggest overlooked key is mindset, because mindset is what dictates how you show up within that structure. And mindset is everything, because without the right mindset, and again, the right skills and tools, even the best written, well thought out orders tend to fall apart. So where does the framework I teach, which is BH2O, as I briefly mentioned at the beginning of this, fall into this whole system? And what does it actually do? So it is an actual structured co-parenting system. It is, I frequently say that I help and support co-parents to build an operating system, a relational operating system that gives you that structure, that predictability for how to exchange information between you with regard to the kids, how to keep all of that child-centered, and how to actually make decisions collaboratively, which is what your kids are frequently needing from you. And as a caveat, just I want to mention, frequently we're told until the kids are 18, but the reality is well beyond 18 years old, there's still major milestones that you likely want to be a part of. And in order to continue to have access to those moments, kids need to feel at peace. They need to feel that you're not going to be the person bringing the tension. That can also down the line lead to estrangement, which is a big, very complicated thing that happens more frequently than I think we talk about. And again, all of that is avoidable, and it all has to do with how you're showing up to this moment. As we discussed a moment ago, mindset is really the key, because that's what's going to impact how your kids remember this stretch of time, right? It's not going to be the individual moments. They're going to remember how they were left to feel in the phase of this transition. So that's really what's at stake, and that's really the biggest determining factor in how your relationship with them, how they will interpret your relationship with them and the role you played in all of this. So it is not therapy. It is, of course, not legal advice. Jolee is here for that. I'm not here, to be a decision maker for you, but it is about having a framework that you walk to that truly speaks to the needs and the values of you and your family, and is responsive and workable for your specific unique situation and the needs of your children. So where does this fit in? In the larger context, as we mentioned, there are several other supporting professionals. So of course, you know what an attorney does. And again, Jolie will speak more to that. A therapist is the person who one would process all of the things that have happened before. That is not something I do with my clients. We don't get into the past. We don't talk about who did what to whom. We are really focused on the now and creating that structure and creating workability today in every moment. So the therapist is the person to deal with that emotional healing, or perhaps untangling some of those patterns from the past or the events or how they've impacted you, and certainly to deal with any mental health related concerns or issues or challenges. The GAL, which is called a guardian ad litem, or stands for guardian ad litem, is really does the investigation for the court. So sometimes they will get pulled into a case, and again, Jolie could speak a little more to when and how that happens, but they are the eyes and ears of the court. So they're frequently trying to decipher what is going on, who's contributing what to whom, what is the dynamic. But again, sometimes the challenge with that individual is that sometimes people are really, really good about showing you only what they want you to see and making sure that you don't know the rest. So that is a challenge that sometimes comes up, as it could be really difficult to distinguish what truly is happening and in a particular family dynamic situation. The parenting coordinator will get assigned frequently if parents are having a difficult time making decisions, and they will oftentimes make decisions for you or be the tiebreaker. The challenge with that is it can create dependency on such an individual being the third party and being always that referee. And the other piece to that is sometimes parents might feel that the person doesn't fully understand what's important to them and their values. And so they are just prescribing kind of their own imposed perspective. And so there could be challenges with buy-in. It can actually add to the tension, unfortunately, rather than helping to move things forward. And a mediator, of course, helps to reach agreements, but then after the fact, they're no longer around. And so parents are left on their own to deal with, how do I navigate these day-to-day things? And what happens if, for example, somebody's supposed to drop off my child, but they're late, or some last minute change occurred, or something doesn't get completely followed through with? What happens then, and how do I navigate this? And so they can feel at a loss. So again, what BH2O offers is the tools, the skills, the mindset shifts that are critically important, and as well as that system for how to actually handle and navigate those day-to-day moments. So a brief exercise to kind of put our boots on the ground and kind of see how this works. So I invite you very briefly to take a quick pause and think of a moment, and I would invite you to think of a moment with your co-parent, but it could really be with anybody. And notice a time that just something happened that did not feel good. Maybe you got a response you didn't appreciate. Maybe there was a look you didn't appreciate. Maybe somebody did something that they weren't supposed to, or didn't do something that they were supposed to, and it left you feeling a certain kind of way. So I'm just going to give you a brief moment to think of something that recently happened. I invite you for it to be a small one because it's easier to apply new skills to things that are small that we can wrap our mind around. So hopefully you thought of something. And so think back how that moment felt. What was your initial instinct? How did you want to respond? Were you tempted to shut down? Were you tempted to argue? Did you want to send a text? And maybe feel into what emotions came up. What sensations do you remember noticing in your body? And now think for a moment, what was important to you underneath all of that? So now imagine if you were to respond from that place. So instead of reacting through that knee-jerk initial instinct, if you were to respond from that place of what was actually important underneath those initial thoughts, emotions, whatever was there for you, that's the shift. That's the shift from the order to the outcome, when we have that intention and that larger purpose and mission in mind. So I want to share a very brief story about how this works. I was working with a client. He was a dad, and his 6-year-old son started taking ice skating lessons, and he was really excited and he was doing really well. And so dad would come to his practice, and he frequently found himself not present, not being able to be present. He would notice all the other parents, and they were going through a divorce, and it was a small town and everybody knew their business, and he felt that he was being judged and that people were thinking things, and he just couldn't stop getting pulled into conflict when he was in that environment. And after just a few weeks of working together, he shared with me that since utilizing the skills and the tools and the structures that we were creating together, he was able to actually be present. So those people were still there. They were still doing whatever they were doing before, but he was able to actually focus on what mattered most, which is his son being excited, enjoying that moment, taking it in and cheering him on. And that's exactly what kids need, is not perfection, just presence, right? That's really all that's the thing that makes the difference for them. So to sum it all up, it's not orders that create outcomes. You are the one who is creating the outcome for your unique situation, for your unique family, and you have the power to do so. You don't need your co-parent to change first, or at all, for that matter. You have the power, it's all in you, and it's totally doable. And your mindset is really what shapes your child's experience. I'm going to say that one again because I think it's really important. Your mindset is what shapes your child's experience. And there is a better way. And the fact that you're here today tells me that you're already on that path. So thank you so much for being here. I'd like to briefly invite you to go ahead and maybe take a picture of this or scan it and schedule a one-on-one call, because I would love to support you in gaining some clarity about your unique situation and identify your next best step. And this is all not just about conflict prevention, it's truly about future protection. Because at the end of the day, when this trial and everything is said and done, right, you are creating a life. You still have a family of sorts, a family unit that you are going to be living into. So what is that future going to look like? And this process and the beginning of this process is what determines that now, not later. So thank you all for listening, and I'm passing it over to Jolee.
Thank you, Maria. So I'm going to bring up my screen. All right. I love listening to Maria speak, and I love partnering with her. I'm going to talk about the legal aspects of everything to do with custody. My name is Jolee Vacchi. I am known as the Compassionate Divorce Attorney. I own a law firm based in Worcester, Massachusetts called Foundations Family Law and Mediation Center. I am a licensed attorney in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I am a certified mediator, a collaboratively trained attorney, and I'm also a certified coercive control trauma-informed attorney. Our philosophy is we try to resolve family law conflicts as painlessly and peacefully as possible. We really try to resolve family law conflicts outside of court, if possible. That is a place where you are in control of the terms of your family law matter, whether it be custody related, your finances, your home, instead of turning over the most important things in your life to a stranger, the judge. And you probably aren't going to get everything you want, but at least you're choosing those terms and you're not having a stranger decide them for you. All right, let's see. Let's get going here. All right, just to briefly touch on what I'm going to be talking about. So we're going to briefly cover the different types of custody. I'm going to share with you a few examples of common parenting time schedules. We will talk about factors that judges consider when they are making custody determinations. We will go over some of the custody professionals that, and some of them Maria briefly touched upon. We'll get into a few special cases dealing with custody. There's some presumptions in cases of domestic violence, and we'll talk about relocation cases, and then my tips for more peaceful co-parenting. All right, so types of custody. People come to me and, they say they want full custody or they want sole custody, but I always want to make sure that we know what we're talking about because, people throw around custody and common vocabulary, and there's different types. So I want to make sure that everyone knows what the different types are. So there's two types of custody. There's legal custody and physical custody. And under legal custody, there is two important components there. Their first is decision-making ability. So this is the ability to make important issues related to your children. And in the court's perspective, these are the major things to deal with your children, mostly including medical decisions, educational decisions, and religious decisions. Then there's also the ability to obtain your children's important records. So their medical records, dental records, report cards, and be able to speak to their providers. So go to parent-teacher conferences, speak to their doctors and dentists. So legal custody can be shared. That's usually called joint legal custody. Or one parent can have sole legal custody. Now it can even get a little bit more complicated. So parents can have joint legal custody. However, one parent can be designated to have final decision-making authority. So in this scenario, both parents would be able to have access to the children's records and be able to go to the parent-teacher conferences and all of that. But if there is a conflict about making an important decision about the child, one parent would be basically have the veto vote. They would be able to veto and trump and say, since we can't make a decision, I'm the one who's going to make the decision and we're going to follow this moving forward. So that is legal custody. So next is physical custody. And when we're talking about physical custody, we're talking about where a child spends their time, going between usually the two parents' homes after they are divorced or separated. You might hear this talked about as the parenting time schedule. We used to talk about this in terms of visitation, but that's kind of been phased out because parents don't visit with their children. It's like parents aren't babysitters, right? We're spending parenting time with the children. So physical custody can also be joint, so we can have equal or shared physical custody, or one parent can have sole physical custody, or sometimes we refer to it as primary physical custody. One thing that I like to talk to my clients about is when we're talking about children's issues, even when there's a final order, like when your divorce gets approved, everything to do with the children is final for that moment in time because children's issues are modifiable upon a substantial change in circumstances. So as the children get older, as parents move, as people get different jobs, as kids may need to change schools, you can ask to modify children's, orders. So you may think of these orders as permanent because for the time being they are, but I like to remind my clients that they're permanent for now, but they have the opportunity to be changed at any point in the future. And sometimes that's helpful for them to remember. All right, so next we're going to get into examples of common parenting time schedules. So the first one that I have up top is an example of an alternating week schedule. So this one, I just tried to keep it really easy and basic. So in this example, you see from Sunday to Saturday, the children are spending the week with mom. And then in the following week, the children spend the week with dad. In this kind of a rotating 1 week schedule, the parents could pick the exchange day to be whatever day worked for them, because so they could exchange on Friday nights or Sunday nights, whatever works for them. But the gist of this schedule is they spend 1 week with parent A and the next week with parent B. This schedule is more common for older children. It makes sense because older kids have a longer attention span than, like infants or preschoolers. They can't go more than a day or two without, seeing the other parent because they might not remember who they are. So this one, like I said, is more common for older kids. And a lot of parents like to use this schedule in the summer when they don't have to worry about school schedules and things like that. The next two schedules I'm going to get into are more common during the school year and then with younger children because they have more often transitions. So this next one is called a 3-4-4-3 schedule. And the benefit with this one is that it's very consistent for the children. You can see here that on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, the kids are always with mom. So they know that those days are mom days. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are dad days. So they're always with dad. And then the Wednesday is the day that flips. So in week 1, Wednesdays are with dad. And week 2, Wednesdays are with mom. So all these schedules I'm showing are an example of 50-50 or shared parenting time schedules. But like I said, the benefit of this one is that the kids know what days they're going to be at what house. It keeps it very easy. If, mom likes to do dance with the girls, she can sign the girls up for dance on one of her days. If the dad likes to do art with the girls, he can sign up art classes on his days. So that makes it pretty nice. The downside of this schedule is you see that they're split weekends. So you never get a full weekend with your kids, which is kind of a bummer. But you could always, make some kind of an agreement and have, maybe a full weekend once a month with your co-parent. So that's something that you could work out. The next one is a very common schedule. I will say this is probably the most common schedule that I see with my clients. In this version, you'll see that mom has Mondays and Tuesdays, dad has Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then the weekends from Friday to Sunday are alternated. So the advantage of this one is that there's set weekdays with mom, set weekdays with dad, and then you get the benefit of having those alternated weekends. So this is a very common one. I will say that judges are very apt to order this one if it's left to their discretion. Like I said, these are just examples of common time parenting schedules, but if you and your co-partner are able to negotiate your own schedule, you can completely customize it to whatever your situation is. So with your own work schedule, your kids' activity schedule, the benefit of working with your co-parent to come up with your own schedule is that you have that flexibility to have all those schedules worked into it. Whereas if you leave it to up to the judge, you might be stuck with something that isn't as compatible with your actual schedule. All right, so what are the factors that a judge considers if it's left to their discretion? Like I said, I'm licensed in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, so I'm talking about the factors that our judges consider. They are tasked with making decisions that are in the best interest of the children, which is a very common standard across the United States. But if you live outside of one of these states, you'll want to consult with an attorney in your jurisdiction. So factors that our judges consider are listed here. So the physical and mental health needs of the children and their parents. So do the children have any medical needs or special education needs? For the parents, do they have any mental health needs? Substance abuse issues come in here as well. The children's routine and ties to the community and schools. If the children can remain in the same school system, especially if they have an IEP or 504, the judge would like to be able to maintain that if possible. The child's relationship with extended family members and half siblings. If there are grandparents that are in the area and they are frequently seeing them, that's another thing that the court would like to be able to continue if possible. Preferences of the child, you'll see I have an asterisk next to. There is no state in the United States that I am aware of that there is a set age where the children are allowed to decide who they want to live with. However, I will say in practice, the older the children get, the more deference the judges give to their expressed wishes of how they want to spend their time. This definitely varies by judge. There are some judges who will expressly say, a 15, a 16, a 17-year-old, if they don't want to go to a particular parent's house, they are not going to force them. I've had judges say, I can't put a 15-year-old into a car seat and drive them to another parent's home. Other judges may have different opinions and say, if the order says they have to go to this parent's house, I expect a parent to drive them there. This is one of the problems with family court. The judges have wide discretion when making custody decisions. Judges are humans and bring their own biases. They make bad decisions sometimes. And when you are leaving these very important decisions up to their discretion, sometimes they make bad decisions. And that's part of all of this working with family court. Which parent was historically the primary caretaker of the child is a factor they're supposed to consider. Was one parent a stay-at-home parent and the other one historically the breadwinner of the family? Each parent's work schedule and responsibilities outside of the home. And how willing is each parent willing to facilitate a relationship between a child and the other parent? So no factor is more important than the other. The judges are supposed to look at these factors holistically. And as I mentioned, they have the discretion to really prioritize these according to their own wishes to make these custody decisions when they are determining what is in the best interest of children. Custody professionals. As Maria was mentioning, parenting coordinators can be appointed to assist parents who are having difficulty reaching decisions about their children. So if Parents have joint legal custody, which requires them to reach a mutual agreement on major decisions about their children, and neither of them are the designated decision maker. Sometimes they will agree to use a parent coordinator. If the parent coordinator will try to mediate the issue and will listen to both sides, and if an agreement just can't be reached, then the parent coordinator steps in and basically becomes the quasi judge and makes the decision for them. Essentially, you are handing over your authority to make decisions about your children to a third party. You're giving up essentially your parental rights to your children to another person. Can it help in high conflict situations? Yes, because decisions do need to be made for your children. You know, we need to be able to enroll them in extracurricular activities, enroll them in school, allow them to make medical decisions without having to keep going back to the court. So in some extreme circumstances, this is necessary. But in my opinion, working with somebody like Maria is a much more efficient process than turning over some of your rights to somebody else to make those decisions for you, or to having to go to court to turn those decisions over to a judge. There's also something in Massachusetts called ARC attorneys. It stands for attorney representing the child. You have to ask for the judge to appoint these for your children. They are volunteer attorneys who are appointed by the court to represent your children in all court hearings. They meet with your children and act as the voice of your children in court. These attorneys are usually appointed when the two parents are portraying different opinions of the children to the judge. It's kind of like a he said, she said situation. Mom says the daughter wants to live with her. Dad says the daughter wants to live with dad. So we have our attorney appointed to talk to the daughter and tell the judge, where does the daughter actually want to live? It may be something, maybe she wants to live with both. And so she's telling the parents different things because she feels bad and caught in the middle. So that's when an ARC attorney may be appropriate. It's important to note that the ARC attorney is not telling the judge what she thinks is best for the daughter. She is simply stating the daughter's position to the judge. She is the voice of the child. This may be called something else in different states. Sometimes they're called CASA attorneys. Where I work in Massachusetts, it's called an ARC attorney. And then, as Maria also mentioned, a guardian ad litem, also known as a GAL, is very frequently used in contested custody cases, especially in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, where I practice. There's different types of guardian ad litems that can be appointed. Either it's a family law attorney or sometimes a mental health professional if there's extenuating circumstances such as domestic violence, substance abuse issues, or if one of the children has special education needs. But this GAL is appointed to do a comprehensive investigation about the family. They speak to the parties, the children, they do home visits, they speak to collaterals that are identified by the parties, pediatricians, the schools, they review documents. So they prepare a very comprehensive report to provide to the court. And it's a lot more comprehensive than an attorney is able to provide to the court in a 20-minute motion session. And it is expensive, I will say. It comes at an additional cost, but it is more cost effective than going through a whole trial. So it's kind of like a middle ground. And I will say that the judges do frequently rely heavily on these reports. So if you choose to go this route, you definitely want to work in tandem with your attorney to make sure you have a good strategy and that you're using that investment into the guardian ad litem effectively. All right, just a few notes on some special considerations. In Massachusetts, there is a rebuttable presumption that in extreme cases of domestic violence, there is a presumption against joint custody. A lot of people don't know this. The domestic violence has to be a pattern of escalating abuse or an extreme incidence of physical violence for this presumption to apply. But if this is your circumstances or maybe somebody you know, know. It's important for them to know that this is set by statute. That means that joint custody is presumed not to be in the children's best interest, and then the burden shifts to the other side to be able to prove evidence to show why it would be in the children's best interest to overcome this presumption. And then relocation cases, I actually get a fair number of these cases. A relocation case is when a parent is requesting to move out of state with a child. These are some of the toughest custody cases, in my opinion, because there is a clear winner and a clear loser. In custody cases in general, sometimes, there's a lot of compromise. Maybe some parent wants sole, physical custody, and the other parent wants 50-50, and we can kind of work out somewhere in the middle, and everyone kind of walks away feeling like they got something. But in a relocation case, there's a clear winner and a clear loser. Either there's a move or there's not. So these are very high stakes cases. They typically involve a required guardian ad litem. They are lengthy and they are complex. There's different standards that have to be met. So if you are considering moving out of state and you're not in Massachusetts, I urge you to consult with an attorney, because there's different standards that have to be met. In Massachusetts, it's not just the best interest of the child standard. It depends on if you are the primary physical custodial parent or if you have a shared schedule. I could talk a lot about this topic, but the best thing I can say is consult with an attorney, because these are a lot more nuanced than just your typical custody case. And then finally, my tips for more peaceful co-parenting. I encourage all of my clients to use co-parenting apps. Specifically, our Family Wizard is my preferred app. You can have all of your professionals granted access to your subscription. So I can see all of my clients' messages. I don't have to have them send me screenshots. I can print them out easily for court. It's fantastic. They've even added a lot more features lately. You can do phone calls, FaceTimes with your children. It creates a beautiful record for court. You can track expenses, reimbursements. They have a tone meter in there, so it makes sure that you're not sending aggressive or hostile messages to each other. Our Family Wizard is wonderful. If exchanges are causing discomfort or high conflict, I recommend trying to do pickups and drop off of the children at school when possible, so you don't even have to interact with the other parent. In the summer, if this is not possible, if you're exchanging on the weekend, you can try to do it at a neutral location. Try to avoid the police station if you don't have a restraining order, so there's no safety concerns. Sometimes my clients will exchange, at a strip mall where there are cameras in the parking lot, or at the town hall or a park, because the police station can be scary for little kids if there's not a restraining order involved. A co-parenting coach. I love sending my clients to somebody like Maria to learn the skills that they need to, like she said, because the orders can create some structure, but it's really the mindset shifts that make the most difference for families and especially for children. And just to echo Maria's sentiments, what she was saying in her presentation, a lot of this takes some form of radical acceptance about the family court and about your co-parent. Unfortunately, family court is not a place that is going to provide you with justice or to be able to right any wrongs about the misgivings that you experienced during your relationship or that you will continue to experience afterwards with your co-parent. The judge and no one else is going to be able to change your co-parent and how they choose to interact with you. But being able to control your reactions and your experiences in your relationship with your children is where you're going to be able to find your power. And that's where you're going to learn that is through working with somebody like Maria. And so this is my information. That is a QR code to schedule a free discovery call with my office. And I think with that, we are going to open it up for question and answer. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. So much information packed in there. I'm going to stop recording in 1 second, but before I do, if you are listening to this recording and want to get in touch with Jolee or Maria, please reach out to us or to them for that free chat. It is super helpful. Let me stop recording.